Everyone, my name is Evan Freiberger, and today we're going to be talking about that snowstorm that's up there near the Great Lakes. It's already underway, already starting to see some snow reports out there. As you can see, we see some snow reports here in Wisconsin, going into southern Minnesota, also into North and South Dakota as well, with around 4 to 5 inches over here. South of Minneapolis going down into Wisconsin, a little bit more snow is possible here in this region. Maybe a couple of more snowflakes and maybe an inch or so left up here in North Dakota. But the winter so far, in terms of this winter storm, 7.5 inches in Cando, North Dakota. Minnesota mainly in second here with a couple of measurements here of 6 to 7 inches. And Wisconsin is coming in. Highest amount that I've seen so far in Wisconsin is around 4.2 inches. But again, we're going to start to see those snowfall reports start to traverse a little bit further to the south and east into the Ohio Valley. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is our storm system up in here. And eventually that's going to push down to the south and east, continuing to drop some snow. We could see some snow, decent amount of accumulations even over here near Chicago and northern Indiana. They've been eventually pushing into Ohio as well. We're still looking for some sort of possibility here of some higher snowfall amounts kind of in this region, but a lot of the models aren't really saying that that's possible. There's only like one or two that are really showing elevated snowfall amounts up there, so I'm not super confident on what's going to happen there. My intuition's telling me a little bit too much warmth, but we'll go over the models and we'll show you all the different scenarios there. Then we got another Pacific storm coming into the United States, eventually going to be bringing enough energy in to maybe cause some more rain, some more snow up in the mountainous regions up here in the Pacific Northwest, and then eventually bringing a little bit of a warm up to the United States after this storm comes through. In terms of severe weather and rain on the southern side, we're not really expecting too much out of this storm like some of the other storms that we've had, but some cloudier and definitely some colder conditions are coming. So let's go ahead and hop over to the models and see what we're seeing out there. First, focusing in on the snow still to come up here in the Great Lakes region and the Ohio Valley. You can see currently we have quite a decent area here of some snow extending all the way from North and South Dakota through Minnesota down into Iowa, parts of Wisconsin, and northern Illinois as well. We're going to be expecting all of this snow to kind of travel pretty much directly in this path and eventually merge with some moisture a little bit further off to the east, potentially causing some issues in terms of some surprise snowfall. But again, there's a whole lot of models that are really latching on to that being really more than a couple of inches. But we'll be going over that in just a second. Heaviest snowfall right now seems to be falling here in southern Wisconsin. Eventually that's going to move into Michigan. Let's kind of look at the latest model runs and see what this storm could do as it goes into the future. So, as you can see, it's the latest model run from the NAM 3K model. This is the first model we're going to be looking at. And going into the evening today, you can see that still some snow is possible. It seems like this amount of snow that is happening with this model is a little bit heavier than what is actually happening. So I think this model is a little bit bullish here. But as you can see, I mean, as we go into the evening hours, this little secondary piece back here, so we got kind of two areas of the storm that can produce some heavier snowfall. It's going to strengthen a little bit as we go into the evening at around 1 p.m. as it moves into southern Minnesota, going into northern Iowa, and then eventually pushing into the Chicago region with a little bit of snow over there near Bloomington. That could reach also as far south as Fort Wayne, but the main area that's going to be getting that main area of snowfall is over here near Michigan, near Lansing. Pretty much the entire state of Michigan is going to be getting into some light to moderate snowfall as this system pulls through. And again, just keep in mind the time is up here of when the model run is depicting when these conditions are happening. So this is happening at 11 p.m. tonight. As I push this into the future, you can see that snow continues to kind of hang around the Great Lakes region, down into the Ohio Valley. A little bit of heavier snow potential. Almost the entire state of Indiana could get in on some snow, maybe a little bit of accumulation there, so a little bit of an uptrend there. Not too confident in that, but we are going to compare and contrast with the models, see if there's any validity to that. Also, some snow making it all the way down to the south, potentially even some snowflakes down there in Nashville, which is pretty interesting. Maybe a little bit of a stronger system than we noticed yesterday, being able to bring that cooler air a little bit further to the south into the Tennessee Valley. But as you can see, this storm is kind of split at this point. As we go into 11 a.m. on the 20th, we have an area of some heavier snow starting to develop over here near Pennsylvania, reaching all the way down into Virginia, Maryland as well. And then we have another area behind that. And all of this area of moisture and cold air and these low pressures. We got one over here. You can see it near Virginia Beach. We got this one over here. We got a little area of moisture just kind of trapped in between these two things. And eventually, these are all going to kind of try to combine. And when they do that, it's going to be very important in figuring out what is going to happen up here in New England. So as I push this forward, you can see the NAM 3K model starts to fizzle out in terms of the heavier amounts of snow, but there's still some decent widespread snow as we go into 7 p.m. on the 20th. And then eventually, as that cooler air starts to push off to the east, you can see the NAM spins up this part of the storm to the east of the area, not really bringing too much more additional snowfall over here towards Boston and Providence. So that is one strike there for, this coastal storm that everybody's been hypothesizing about. We've never had model agreements on it. Yesterday, there was like one or two models saying it. Today, I think there's about one model saying that it's still possible. So very low confidence that it's going to happen, but just given the fact that there are still like a model saying that it's possible, you should definitely still keep an eye on that potential. Yeah, generally, some light snow could be possible at around 2 a.m. December 21st, all the way down into parts of Tennessee and Alabama. Not sure how confident I am about that. I've seen this signal a couple times this year, and it never happens. But hey, if it does happen, I'll take it. I'm not going to be expecting any accumulation out of this, but maybe some snowflakes could be possible down there in the southeast. As I continue to push this into the future, you can see that still some snow is going to be possible over here for a lot of New Jersey as we go into the 21st, around 6 a.m. And then eventually this little kind of snow squall line is going to push almost throughout the entirety of, parts of Albany, New York, maybe getting into Long Island as well. And then it starts to fizzle out and kind of dissipate there. And then we have just some scant snow lingering behind this thing, a little bit of lake effect over there near Cleveland. Now, another model that I like to use is the HRRR. This is our highest resolution model here, and it's going to give us kind of a similar picture here, especially initially, as the NAM. A little bit less bullish on, just how strong this system is. Still bringing some decent snow over there near Chicago, southern Wisconsin, going into Michigan as well. A little bit of mixed precip there to the south. Not really too much snow signals as far south as Bloomington, but a little bit of snowflakes could be possible. You can see that heavier snow is really off over here off the coast of Wisconsin and about to push into parts of Michigan as well. Maybe a little bit heavier band up there in northern Indiana as we pull into 2 a.m. And as I continue to push this through, you can see this is pretty interesting on the HRRR. This could lead to a decent amount of snow if this does happen. Over there near Indianapolis, pushing up south of Fort Wayne, it's going to be fast moving, so it's not going to put, we're not talking about feet of snow here with this, but, a couple of inches could definitely be possible with this area of some heavier snow. You can see that low pressure system. If I push this back and kind of push it forward again, you can see that there is definitely some spin here. So this would be our low pressure system. And, it's bringing up a little bit of extra moisture, allowing for, a little bit of snow right into that cold area above the storm. And then eventually it's going to push down in the south and east. A little bit of agreement, though, on the HRRR and the NAM for maybe some snowflakes there in Nashville as we go into 2 p.m. on the 20th. This is where, I really want to pay attention to. We're going to have a little bit of a rain-snow mix back over here, but over here, I really want to see what this model's opinion is. We can see we're already starting to see some heavier snow over here near New Jersey, going into Pennsylvania. That rain-snow line is pretty apparent here. A little bit more rain for Philadelphia on the HRRR, but then eventually, as I push this forward, looks like the HRRR has this a little bit further to the west. Look at this. Some heavy snow bands starting to really pile up the snow over there near Yarmouth and Nantucket. But the thing is, this is only going to last for like an hour or two before it moves off. So it's going to be a quick hitting, heavy, very heavy, and potentially wouldn't rule out some blizzard conditions here in Yarmouth and Nantucket if this does happen. If we switch over to the wind gusts at this time, you can see that anywhere from 30 to 40 miles per hour winds is possible if the visibility drops too low and, you have above 35 mile per hour winds. That's going to be a recipe for a blizzard there. But again, this is only the HRRR that is latching onto this right now, and we'll go over some of our different snowfall amounts as well. But yeah, look at this. As we go into 1 a.m. on the 21st, HRRR is also saying, hey, maybe a little bit of snow all the way down here in northern Alabama, east of Nashville, going into Knoxville as well, southern Kentucky too. So there's a little bit of some snowstorms down there, little tiny, kind of individualized snowstorm clouds clusters here. So that'd be interesting if that does happen. Definitely looking forward to maybe seeing some snowflakes. I live here in northern Alabama. That'd be pretty darn cool. But yeah, HRRR, I think we're pretty much near the end of the model run here, but eventually it moves that little piece of energy off of to the east, and then it also agrees a little bit of backside snow over here near Dover, Philadelphia, Trenton, and New York. So definitely interesting. Could get some decent snowfall accumulation with that as well. So now let's look at the remainder of the snow to come for parts of the Great Lakes, even going down into the southeast. Apparently, a dusting could be possible for some folks. Probably won't last long or stick really too much. It's been kind of warm down here. The ground's a little bit warm. But even with that quick hitting bit of snow, I mean, we're still only talking about, an inch or two over here near Boston and Providence. Again, it's going to be heavy for a bit. It's going to be windy for a bit, but it's really not going to stick around for more than an hour. So we're not talking about, crazy snowfall accumulation with that. If it sticks around for a little bit longer, we could get some higher amounts pretty quickly. So little bit of some wiggle room there, I believe. Also over here in parts of Pennsylvania going up into New York, we have a widespread area of 1 to 2 inches, 3-4 inches as we go up into some of the more mountainous regions, almost getting maybe some isolated spots of 5 inches possible. Also over here near Rochester, maybe a couple of inches possible there. Utica as well. Keep in mind the HRRR isn't really in range of that secondary bit of energy and snow for New Jersey, so it's not going to have this amount right here at all. But up here, it's going to have this amount pretty close to what's possible here. For Chicago, 1 to 2 inches from Fort Wayne down just to the east of Indianapolis, almost extending all the way to Cincinnati. We're talking about, dusting to an inch again. There's going to be some heavier snow. It's going to be brief, though. Really not going to last for too long. But it could get pretty windy and pretty heavy there for a moment. Coming up here into Michigan, we're seeing a couple of inches of snow being possible. The highest amounts do seem to be above Lansing, though, near Mount Pleasant, 4 to 5 inches. Still possible over there near Traverse City as well. Maybe anywhere from 4 to 5, 6 inches still possible there. Same thing over here near Sheboygan, and there's a little bit of snowfall back over here, but, I really do think the main area where we're going to see additional accumulating snow on the backside of this wave is going to be back over here near Minnesota, near St. Cloud, Minneapolis, Rochester, with potentially 2 to 4 inches still possible as we go throughout the day. As far as down to the southeast, a little bit of a dusting could happen. I don't really know if this is going to stick or not. I think it's a little bit too warm personally, but keep an eye out for some snowflakes on the 21st as we go into the evening. Now, comparing and contrasting between the HRRR and the NAM, pretty much in agreement here with a little bit higher snowfall amounts here for Indiana going into western Ohio. You can see that we're seeing anywhere from 3 to 4 inches being possible over there near Logansport, Muncie, south of Bellefontaine. So definitely some differences there between these models. So it could be a little bit less than this or around this amount here. Also a little bit more snow there for Kentucky and going down into parts of Tennessee, east of Nashville, down into Alabama as well in these kind of elevated areas here. You see we got a little bit of, if you look at the topography under here, we have a little bit higher elevated areas here. So that is going to be a little bit cooler up there, leading to a little bit of a higher chance for accumulation as well. Not seeing any really major differences up here other than not really too much extra snow near Boston, New Bedford, or Nantucket, maybe like an inch or two possible there. You can really see just how close we were to like a foot or almost 2 feet of snow. We should still technically watch this thing. It goes a little bit further to the west. I got to keep an eye on it, but typically we don't see models shift over 100 miles as we get right up to the event. So very low confidence this is going to happen, but man, if it does, that is the possibility there. If it does move like for some reason crazy far to the west there. In terms of the southeast, we already talked about that. Sorry. Oh yeah, I was going to talk up New Jersey. So this model is in range of that little bit of snow coming into New Jersey. We could be talking about almost the entire state of New Jersey getting anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches of snow possible here. So that's going to be, the highest amounts look to be in the northern portion of New Jersey, but I wouldn't be surprised if we even got like 2 inches further down to the south, just to the north of Atlantic City. Yeah, other than that, I'm not really seeing any huge differences. Maybe a little bit more snow here on the NAM, but this is such a small and isolated area. Near Sheboygan, it's kind of hard to tell, but like a foot of snow could be possible there. So yeah, as you can tell, this is not some big time snowfall event. The GFS and the Euro are both on par here with the NAM 3K model that, we're just not going to see, a strengthening system that comes close enough to the coast to produce some huge snowfall totals. So I really don't see that as a possibility. I don't know why people are latching on to one model when we have multiple models to look at, and the averages are really pushing this thing, unfortunately, a little bit too far to the east. I wish I could sugarcoat it for you guys, but it just doesn't seem like a very likely scenario at this point. In terms of the wind gusts across the United States, we are still watching out for some pretty gusty winds up there in North and South Dakota. Eventually, that's going to push into Nebraska. We're talking anywhere from 30, 40, maybe even getting close to 50 mile per hour winds there in northern Nebraska. And then that's going to slowly die off as it moves into Iowa and Missouri and parts of Minnesota, but still is going to have anywhere from 30 or 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. And then eventually that is going to push down to the south and east into the Ohio Valley with some gusty winds, but you barely will notice them. And our main wind maker is going to be off of the coast here as we go into the future, really just like right on the edge there near Boston. But man, look back here. I mean, we got a pretty decent windstorm coming into the western coast. Let's bring this all the way back just to make sure we don't miss anything. A couple of windstorms here. One going into parts of Washington, just to the west of Seattle. Could see anywhere from 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gust along the coast. That kind of scrapes up, dies down, but then we got kind of the atmosphere kind of reloads. We get another low pressure to bring more widespread 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts along the coast here. We're talking anywhere from 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts all the way from northern California going into Oregon and Washington as well. And then as I push this forward, you can see yet another windstorm could be possible. And again, keep in mind, this is in the period of 2 days where we could have 3 shots here. The first one should make impact at around 4 p.m. on the 19th. The second one should make impact on the 20th at around 2 p.m. And then the third one is going to come in on the 21st. So kind of rapid fire windstorms, mainly along the coast and some of the valley regions in between some of the higher elevations, as a couple of these storms eject in the United States. Northern California going up into Oregon and Washington need to watch out not only for this, but also heavy precipitation. We're talking about flooding, more snow in the mountainous regions, and maybe a potential for some power outages there, especially near the coast and in some of the valleys. In terms of precipitation, you can see where it stands out the most. This is the total rain accumulation here for mainly the coast. You see that we could get anywhere from 2 to 3, maybe even some isolated spots of 4 inches and higher of rain over here on the Pacific Northwest coast, California up into Washington. Still got a little bit of a strip here, but it does look like it's a little bit further to the north and a little bit weaker than the last run. Still monitoring for some drought relief, but yeah, I mean, I'm not really, it's pretty dry, Yeah, besides the snow that's possible up here in the Northeast, everywhere else is pretty dry. The majority of the country got a pretty dry slot here and a pretty dry slot here. And again, this is the rainfall amounts over the next 5 days. So going to be mostly dry in the Southeast, going into the Southwest as well, up into the Central Plains, Wyoming, going up into the Northern Plains, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota. So not really expecting anything too crazy in terms of rainfall, except for over here. Got to watch this storms. A lot of these little rain and wind storms kind of coming into this area could cause some problems like mudslides and flooding. Now, in terms of severe weather, we are still watching out for some more intrusions of some instability and the potential for some severe weather as we go throughout the month. And as you can see, as we go into the 23rd, a little bit of an interesting signal here, a little bit of an uptrend of the amount of instability that's going to be possible with this storm right before Christmas at around the 24th here. This would be Christmas Eve. You can see that we have plenty of instability out in this area. This would be plenty enough for severe weather, potentially tornadoes and all of that. So this is in the range of somewhat accuracy. So let's kind of check out what's happening here. Yeah, we got a little bit of a trough here. You can really see that in the jet streak here. Looks like most of that energy is packed behind here. Eventually that'll try to round the base and go over to the east. Let's try to see what's happening. Yeah, it's around 3 p.m. So that's peak date. Yeah, lower level winds are a little bit weak, but I definitely wouldn't rule out some spin ups with this. Yeah, and you can see that there are some storms firing here in this area as we go into the 24th. So that is now on my radar. That's definitely an uptrend since the last time we looked at the models yesterday. I'm going to push this into the future again. So yeah, that's going to be brief. Maybe a little bit of severe weather also possible in Mississippi and southern Alabama as we go into Christmas Day at around 12 p.m. Then eventually the instability kind of dies off, and we're still watching for this surge of warmth and instability as we go into the 27th. This could be a little bit more of a widespread severe weather event with a little bit better kinematics. If you come over here to the lower level winds, you can see they're definitely maxed out, or not maxed out, but the highest amounts of lower level shear that we have with this storm are over here in northeastern Texas going into Arkansas. So that's where we're going to be watching out for the biggest tornado threat there. You see those upper level winds kind of line up pretty well there. A little bit weaker where those lower level winds a little bit disconnected, but definitely this could be our first kind of more widespread, a little bit more dangerous of a tornado threat on the 27th. And again, this is around 3 p.m. The timing is going to change. All these kinematics are going to change as we are pretty far out from this event, but it's still there is the point that I'm trying to make. It's still there, still a couple of days of surges of moisture. If this does come to fruition and stay there all the way until this event, we can have easily a multi-day severe weather outbreak and tornadoes associated with that. So not going to really talk about the snow that's possible with this storm just because, that's going to be well out in la la land, but we have had a lot of consistency with this, so I'm still keeping my eye on it. All right, and as always, last that's on our list here is going to be the temperatures across the United States over the next 5 days. And as you can see, definitely pretty warm this evening going into the Central Plains, but that's going to be short-lived as we get quite the intrusion here of some colder air. Still seeing that uptrend continue here on the cold air, definitely going a little bit further south. We could be talking about below freezing temperatures all the way down into southern Mississippi, Alabama, and central Georgia. Again, this is not some Arctic blast, but it's definitely, I hate the word blast in general. It just is way over the top and doesn't really help anybody understand what's happening. It's just some cooler air that's really ejecting into the United States, okay? And we have a decent amount of cold air all the way from, southeast, going up into the northeast, going into the Ohio Valley, 20 and 30s, getting down into the teens and single digits over here in North Dakota, South Dakota, going into Minnesota, and also parts of Wisconsin. And eventually, you can see that a little brief warm-up brings 50-degree temperatures almost all the way up into Montana, which is crazy. Actually, it does bring it in there. That's wild. That is pretty crazy. Don't really see that too often, especially as we get into, December, late December. This just doesn't happen that often. It's definitely a symptom of something, and you guys know what it is. But over there in the Central Plains, you can see that we have another area of some warmth still working its way in, still pretty cold up there in the northeast with some single digits and some potentially some negative degree temperatures in the higher elevation. It's the 22nd here. And then pushing into the morning hours, it's generally cooler, but you can tell that a lot of those freezing temperatures are pretty much gone off this map. This is when we're going to start to get into a little bit more of an abnormally warm pattern and battle of some of these cooler temperatures. They still try to hang on here in the northeast as we go into Christmas Day. Starts off pretty cold, and then it's warm in the southeast and the northeast, and the Great Lakes are still hanging on to that cold. And then eventually we start to see that system come in where that severe weather is going to be possible, and you're really about to see this warm air really start to build up here in the Central Plains out in front of it, and that's going to lift all the way up into portions of the Ohio Valley. We're talking 50s all the way up into southern Michigan, which is just crazy to think about it. The fact that that's possible, that just does not happen that often. And then eventually that warmth is going to push off to the north and east with the storm. Wow, we could be talking again potentially, let me see how hot. Yeah, potentially almost 60-degree temperatures there near Boston going into December 30th. So we got to monitor this storm. It's definitely going to have some anomalous heat, some severe weather, maybe some snow with it as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you did enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.